Hello, ladies. This is Carla Marie, and I am enjoying a new situation, just like all of you are. We're all adapting, but I wanted to show you what I am doing this morning. This is me sitting on the beach. Isn't it lovely out here? And of course, we're right in the middle of the COVID-19 stay at home restrictions, but I am waiting on my students from the college to join me for a college Zoom meeting. I teach math at our college, and I found this very nice background on the Zoom website. And while I'm waiting for my students to join me, I am just sitting here eating my breakfast and enjoying watching the waves roll in. And you can see I can't move too quickly because when I do, my virtual background starts to disintegrate. But I am enjoying the beach this morning. So I'm going to bring you a little bit of God's Word shortly. And I just wanted you to see my peaceful background. Maybe you can create a peaceful background on Zoom and eat your breakfast in front of the peaceful background as I'm doing this morning. So what I'd like to do today is just read a little bit out of, let me see if I can get this up here. This is Evening and Morning, and it is a devotional book that is put together of the writings of Charles Haddon Spurgeon. And it's hard to see with my virtual background, but I do want to stay on the beach here a little bit with you. And today is April the 9th. We are quite a bit into the COVID-19 stay-at-home restrictions. Life has changed more than we could have ever thought possible. Who would have thought that this could happen in America? But I find it comforting to read the works of a very godly man who lived many, many years ago. And these people that we go to as our church leaders, founding thought leaders, like Charles Haddon Spurgeon, a great man of God and had a lot of influence. But they didn't have peachy keen lives either. When you think back over their lives and how many bumps and bruises their time of living led to me, I find it refreshing and comforting to see the continuum of the faith of God's people, and especially God's faithfulness to his people over the centuries as he allows different things in our lives to sharpen us and hone us and perfect his church. And this is a challenge. Do we have the perspective that God allowed this season of time for a reason? And I mean, it's not happening outside his control. So for some reason, he has allowed this to happen in our country. And are we learning the lessons he wants us to learn? Are we drawing nigh to him in the way that only true suffering can draw us to our Savior? And today's my husband and one of my sons' birthdays. And it's a kind of difficult time to celebrate a birthday. but it is a time of growth. We should be growing through every circumstance that God sends our way. When we look at the shorter catechism, what is the chief end of man? To glorify God and enjoy Him forever. That ability has not changed right now. We still have the ability, probably more so, to hunker down with God. We're, whether we like it or not, without a lot of the distractions that we have in normal daily life. Are we hunkering down with God? Are we using this time to further our relationship to Him and with Him? And are we going to be more mature Christians at the end of this? I think we are. If we're walking with Him, He's going to use this whole COVID-19 situation and all of the horror of it to grow us as His people. And perhaps it will lead many, my prayer is that this complete feeling of being out of control, which we are, don't have enough supplies. We don't have enough of what we need. We don't have a vaccine. There are many unknowns and many uncertainties, but God knows, and God's in charge, and God has never been out of control. So when we understand that, we have to realize that He has allowed this for a reason, and we just need to pray that His purposes, which are always good, are accomplished, and that He brings us out of this as a refiner brings his precious jewel out of the fire at just the right time for the gold to be strong and shine brightly. That refining process is not pleasant, and it hurts. And right now, I think that America is hurting all over, and we need to be looking to our God, and we need to be on our knees before our God. We need to be appealing to Him to save us and to bring good out of all of this. So I'm going to read for you because I have a few more minutes before I meet my next client today on Zoom. We have a few minutes just to read through the April 9th devotion in Morning and Evening by Charles Haddon Spurgeon. April 9th. And there followed him a great company of people and of women, which also bewailed and lamented him. This was in Luke 23:27. Amid the rabble rout, which hounded the Redeemer to his doom, there were some gracious souls whose bitter anxious sought vent in wailing and lamentations. The language of this is a little bit older. Fit music to accompany that march of woe. When my soul can, in imagination, see the Savior bearing his cross to Calvary, she joins the godly women and weeps with them. For indeed, there is true cause for grief, cause lying deeper than those mourning women thought. They bewailed innocence maltreated, goodness persecuted, love bleeding, meekness about to die. But my heart has a deeper and more bitter cause to mourn. My sins were the scourges which lacerated those blessed shoulders, and crowned with thorn those bleeding brows. My sins cried, crucify him, and laid the cross upon his gracious shoulders. His being led forth to die in sorrow enough for one eternity. But my having been his murderer is more, infinitely more, grief than one poor fountain of tears can express. Why those women loved and wept, it were not hard to guess. But they could not have had greater reasons for love and grief than my heart has. Nain's widow saw her son restored, but I myself have been raised to newness of life. Peter's wife's mother was cured of the fever, but I of the greater plague of sin. Out of Magdalene 7 devils were cast, but a whole legion out of me. Mary and Martha were favored with visits, but he dwells with me. His mother bare his body, but he is formed in me the hope of glory. In nothing behind the holy women in debt, let me not be behind them in gratitude or sorrow. Love and grief, my heart dividing, with my tears, his feet I'll lave, constant still, in heart abiding, weep for him who died to save. So as tomorrow is Good Friday, this is the Holy Week, we're leading up to the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ in these devotions. And he's talking about the grieving women that followed Jesus on the cross and how much more he understood and could join with them in grief because Spurgeon's own sins and my own sins had put him on that tree. So now I'm going to read April 9 evening devotion. And it comes from Psalms 18:35. Thy gentleness hath made me great. The words are capable of being translated. Thy goodness hath made me great. David gratefully ascribed all of his greatness not to his own goodness, but to the goodness of God. Thy providence is another reading, and providence is nothing more than goodness in action. Goodness is the bud of which providence is the flower, or goodness is the seed of which providence is the harvest. Some render it thy help, which is but another word for providence. Providence being the firm ally of the saints, aiding them in the service of the Lord. Or again, thy humility hath made me great. Thy condescension may, perhaps, serve as a comprehensive reading, combining the ideas mentioned, including that of humility. It is God's making himself little, which is the cause of our being made great. We are so little that if God should manifest his greatness without condescension, we should be trampled under his feet. But God, who must stoop to view the skies and bow to see what angels do, turns his eye yet lower and looks to the lowly and contrite and makes them great. There are yet other readings, as for instance, the Septuagint, which reads, Thy discipline, thy fatherly correction hath made me great. While the Chaldee paraphrase reads, Thy word hath increased me. Still, the idea is the same. David ascribes all his own greatness to the condescending goodness of his Father in heaven. May this sentiment be echoed in our hearts this evening while we cast our crowns at Jesus' feet and cry, "Thy gentleness hath made me great." How marvelous has been our experience of God's great gentleness. How gentle have been his corrections. How gentle his forbearance. How gentle his teachings. How gentle his drawings. Meditate upon this theme, O believer. Let gratitude be awakened. Let humility be deepened. Let love be quickened ere thou fallest asleep tonight. Both of those devotions really speak to my heart, and I hope they speak to yours. In the middle of this time, can we be grateful for all that God has accomplished in us and for us and through us? And may you be a light today to those that are maybe a little downcast because of circumstances, or maybe you could be a light to those that don't have a light, in shining forth the light of Jesus to others, no matter what we find our circumstances. And this is Carla Marie, and I hope to see you again on my channel. If you enjoyed this, please give it a like and subscribe, because that helps my channel grow. And may God bless you, each and every one.